Good evening. Today is the 27th of February, 2023. When we first came together in early January, we talked about how quickly the time was going to fly this year, and it really is. We're already 2 months, almost into our third month this year, and it's been a busy time, an exciting time for us at the Oklahoma Democratic Party. And tonight we are going to kind of overlap a bit between Black History and Culture Month and Women's History Month. But we're also going to take a look at some of the insanity that has been happening on the other side of the aisle. All that and a whole lot more on tonight's Hamilton Report. I'm Scott J. Hamilton, and I'm very, very happy that you are with us this evening. I don't take lightly the fact that you invite us into your homes or your offices on Monday evenings, because I know that we all have lots of things and commitments and obligations that we have to tend to. So for you to take a half hour to join us on Monday evenings is a source of great gratitude for me. I appreciate you tuning in. And one of the things that I have become particularly appreciative of, besides you, of course, is the fact that we Democrats in Oklahoma are not Republicans. And our good friends at the Lincoln Project do a mighty fine job of rounding up the last week. And tonight we're going to take a look at last week in the Republican Party, thanks to the Lincoln Project.
One thing I didn't know when I wrote In Trump We Trust is how profoundly stupid he is.
The most mistreated group of people in the United States today are white males.
I ran in 2020 for the same exact seat for Congress, and I got away with it then.
Well, this is why God made pipelines.
Is he actually gay? He was dating women not that long ago. Shut up!
That makes me Jew-ish.
But again,
it's always been a party favor. Everybody's always laughed.
Kind, gorgeous. Oh, and great legs. You know, my legs are very muscular because I work out a lot.
But I did get 1.2 million more votes than Ron.
I believe they shot this balloon down over the water because they wanted to be able to decide what was on board.
So I was taking my walk this morning and look what I run across. A vulture eating a possum.
Went on to Clemson. Go Tigers.
Why would straight white men continue to pay their taxes?
And never ever mentions the possible upsides of global warming?
Let's celebrate Presidential Day. There are 46 condoms for you, big guy.
It was hot boy summer for the Taliban.
I know a ton of white people that are as lazy and sorry and probably worse than black people I know.
And they don't want to create another MTG, but we need like 1,000 of you.
Men cannot have the hiccups.
You mean to tell me that you basically hit up your fam, were like, hey, I'm a little mentally ill?
I've always said Golden Corral is actually largely underrated, but that's a separate issue for a different time.
I refer to them as a black person showing their incredible skill at making pancakes.
When they seem like they're the racists themselves.
I want to be a sweet grandma, I really do. I want to be a sweet old lady, but I feel like I might be the kind to hit somebody with a cane.
People used to tell you that Donald Trump was stupid. Remember that? He's an idiot.
What am I looking forward to most about your father's presidential campaign this time around? I don't know that I'm looking forward to any of it.
Well, like I said, we're that's a glimpse at the other side of the aisle this week. I do want to point out our viewer Eric Johnson says we people are Americans, and that is absolute truth, and it's something that we need to hang on to. But Eric, I got to tell you, sometimes it's hard to believe that we're all even trying to play on the same team. If we could, we might move things way forward. But I don't think the way to do that, as Trump Jr. says, is to create 1,000 more Marjorie Taylor Greens. Well, as I said at the top of tonight's program, we are combining a bit of overlap tonight with Black History and Culture Month, as well as Women's History Month. I hope that our guests this month have given you a sense of the importance of Black culture in Oklahoma, because it's rich and it's varied. We've seen very talented people who came to visit with us this week. And it's exciting to me that we have such rich diversity, particularly in our arts here in Oklahoma. But the school board seems to think a different way. We may touch on that a little later. But first, it's my pleasure to introduce to you our special guest this evening. And I'm going to introduce her. But before I do, I want to say that this is someone who not only makes history every day just because of the work that she does, but also because of the position that she holds. It's my great privilege to welcome back to the Hamilton Report the chair of the Oklahoma Democratic Party, Alicia Andrews. Alicia, good evening.
Hi, Scott. Hi, everybody who watches, Scott.
As I told the viewers, we all have things that we could be doing, and I know that's especially true for you right now in the middle of convention season. So thanks for spending a little time with us this evening. I wanted to visit with you about what it's been like for you serving. You've served almost two full terms now as chair of the Oklahoma Democratic Party. But what was it like for you, and what is it like for you being the first Black person in this role for the party?
Okay, so that's a lot, but I want to address Eric Johnson real quickly and be clear. We are all Americans, and dividing us up by parties and dividing up us by races is a way of dividing our nation and keeping us from moving forward. But the reason that we honor Black History Month and Women's History Month is because you don't honor us and you don't move us forward if we leave folks behind, if we don't include the history and the accomplishments of everyone. And, just when you thought maybe we don't have to have a carve out for Black history, there's an all-out attack on history that is not of the majority. And so, it's frustrating and annoying, but it also gives us an excuse to double down and really focus on Black history because it's American history, and women history because it's American history. And there's a move to silence us. Now, back to what it's like being the first African-American chair of the Oklahoma Democratic Party. When I first ran, that actually came up, and I didn't even think about it. That wasn't why I ran. I did not run to make that history. But I am honored that not my name will go down as history, and I've tried to respect that honor, right? By working very hard. And when I eventually leave this post, I feel confident that I will have left it better than where I found it. But being the first Black chair, there are a lot of issues. There are a lot of things that are looked at, and Oklahoma Democrats are Oklahomans. And so there have been some challenges with the acceptance of the first Black chair. There have been some victories with being the first Black chair, but there's so much that I don't think we can cram it into the whole 30 minutes. I'm honored. And I'm proud of Oklahoma. We beat some states. When I became the first Black chair, I beat Tennessee. Tennessee still didn't have a Black chair. They have one now. Just this weekend, Kansas elected their first Black chair. And why is that important? This is 2023. The Civil Rights Act was signed before I was even alive, and we shouldn't still be having firsts, but we are. And I think it is worth noting.
You said first, and that's true in a lot of ways. Oklahoma now has our first Latina in the House of Representatives. 2023, our very first Latina. And when I read that, I thought surely that must be a mistake. That can't be true, but it is true. And these are the things that we don't often reckon with. I think that we don't see, or a lot of us don't see, just because of the way we live our lives. But we are still experiencing first. I mean, our President Biden has a stutter that he has worked his entire lifetime to overcome. But he probably would not have been president with that limited ability before having to rethink everything that he says 30 years ago. It probably would not have happened. And so, yes, we are still seeing some firsts. And while we celebrate those, how can we accelerate them, Alicia?
Well, that is one of my goals. When I first became chair and there was all the hoopla about being the first African-American chair, my thought was we have to get beyond the first. But the only way to get beyond the first is to have the first. We have to be intentional and purposeful when we're out recruiting, when we're asking people to join the party, to be involved in the party, to run for office. We have to be intentional. In order to have the first Latina, we had to run a Latina candidate. In order to have the youngest male serving, we had to run. We had to run Representative Alonzo for him to be the youngest person serving. And so we have to be intentional in identifying the places where we haven't broken through, and have all of our firsts, get our firsts out of the way. And I'm not saying for the sake of first, but this melting pot that is America, there has to be a place for everyone. But we have to be intentional to make it happen, because apparently it's 2023 and it doesn't happen organically. So we have to be intentional. And so that's how we get beyond the firsts, is that we're intentional in being inclusive and making sure that everyone has access, and making direct outreach to all the communities represented in our state.
And I think that a lot of us don't pay a lot of attention to how diverse Oklahoma is. When you consider the number of tribal nations that exist here, when you think about the age, we have an enormous age difference in Oklahoma, education levels. So there are lots of different individual groups within this state. And I don't think that I particularly think of Oklahoma as being a diverse state, but when you just stop and look, there is a lot of diversity here. And I need to say this is just my point of privilege, but diversity is not a bad word, friends. And it's gotten from our superintendent of public instruction, it's gotten to be as bad as woke is to him. But
which is also not a bad word.
It's not a bad word. It's not a bad word. Alicia, you besides your work for the party, which is, let's face it, it's 7 days a week. It's some days 12-hour days, some days are more than that. But you've also been. I think it's really terrific for Oklahoma, and especially for you as the chair of Oklahoma, to have found so many leadership positions within the DNC. You are Midwest Caucus Chair for the ASDC. You are co-chair of the training, and very active in DNC work. How did that come about? Because for a long time, I don't think we really had that close of a connection with the national party.
Well, we had a loose connection, right? I don't want to overstate. We had a loose connection with the national party, and there were a lot of reasons for that. But when I ran for chair, I had some very specific things that I wanted to do for the party. And then when I got involved, I realized that there was so much that I did not know. And fortunately, the Association of State Democratic Committees, which is the organization of the chairs, vice chairs, and executive directors of the 57 states and territories, there's a whole organization with colleagues that are facing the same kind of issues that I'm facing, or who have made it over the hill and are enjoying a blue state. But there are a lot of folks that I can tap into to ask for advice and ask for help and offer help. And so for me, when I want to make a change, I go all in. I don't hang out on the periphery. I go all in, jump in with both feet. So I became the chair, got my feet wet, got my bearings, got my ground, and wanted to be more involved and wanted to ensure that I'd be more involved. And in doing so, I ran for chair of the Midwest Caucus, which is, from Oklahoma all the way up, just the middle part of the nation. And then I was asked, is there another committee that you're interested in? I think that the only way for us to get better is through training, involvement in training. And so I'm the co-chair of the training committee. And then, more than 50% of our state's land mass is rural. And so I'm on the steering committee for the Rural Council as a way to keep my fingers on the pulse of that issue so that I don't lose that issue for our state. And so it's really about, I want to learn something, and I get in, I go in with both feet, and the folks around recognize my dedication and my involvement, and vote me and elect me to these positions.
Jana has a very interesting comment here. The DNC did not start embracing diversity or affirmative action until 1974. It resulted in a big issue at the convention. But I think we have to give props where they're due, because looking around the DNC meeting in Philadelphia a couple of weeks ago, I was very proud of the diversity that I saw in the room, but more so, I was proud of the inclusivity in terms of presenters and speakers, and the fact that we have a national chairman who is also Black. So there has been progress. What do you tell a little girl about what her options are? Say she's in third grade in Oklahoma. What advice do you give her?
Well, so, wow, am I talking to kids? For me, I believe that little girl's options, no matter her hue, her neighborhood, her zip code, her options are whatever it is that she wants. And I think that we've gotten there, I think whatever you see, you can believe you can be. And now that our vice president is a woman, a woman of African-American descent, a woman of Indian descent, that opens up the possibilities. And so if I'm talking to kids, and I have an 11-year-old niece, and I'm talking to them about, what do you want to be? I don't want to hear small things. Yes, you can tell me you want to be a teacher, and you want to be a nurse, and you want to be a ballerina, all the things that I thought were the only possibilities for me growing up in the 60s and 70s. But expand your dream and be whatever you want to be, but stand firm in what it is that you want to be. Don't limit yourself. Don't limit yourself to being what you think you want to be at 9, because that can expand. Because I will tell you that at 50, the thought of being the chair of the Oklahoma Democratic Party never occurred to me. And so you don't have to end your dream in third grade. You can continue to dream and continue. Don't limit yourself, what your thoughts are, what your beliefs are, what you think you can be, and don't listen to the nonsense that's coming out of our state leadership right now, because it's very limiting talk. I don't think it needs to be limited. Everybody needs to know that they can be what they want to be, which is so bizarre when I think about the DNC less than 50 years ago, even having a conversation about diversity. Because if they started talking about it in 1974, I wasn't there, but I bet it wasn't embraced. It was discussed. And so it took a while, and now it's part of the party's platform. And on our state level, it's part of our platform. It's part of what is required to even be able to attend convention. For Oklahoma to even have any representation at that big DNC convention that you always have, our delegation has to be diverse. It is the DNC rule. It is absolutely what we will follow. And so now there's been an embracing, but I'm sure that along the last 49 years, there's been some stumbles, and there will be stumbles, and we have to continue. I mean, keep using the word intentional, but to continue to be intentional.
And that's a great word. And I think that really, you could express a whole lot of what you do within the word intentional. You have literally spoken all across the state of Oklahoma to Democrats. You do a daily, Monday through Friday, Facebook live update every day at 4:15, which is a grind. I mean, let's be honest, to every day come up with new information to share. That's not just overwhelmingly sad. And so you're doing that. You are in meetings. You are talking to donors and potential donors. You regularly interact and work with staff on many levels. Okay, that's a lot. That's an awful lot for someone. What keeps you motivated? What do you wake up in the morning and say, okay, today I will be intentional? What is it that drives that for you?
Well, it hasn't changed since the moment that I decided to run for chair. I believe in, I just do. I believe in the Democratic platform. I believe that we all do well when we all do well. That is absolutely what I believe, and it's what motivates me. What makes me get up and do this work, though, is I'm going to continue to vote as a Democrat. Unless there's a big switch like we had, years ago, I'm going to keep voting as a Democrat. And for right now, I don't see myself leaving Oklahoma for right now. And so I get up every day trying to make it easier for folks to vote as Democrats, trying to make it where folks it's easier to be proud to be a Democrat. It's easier to stand up straight and say that you're a Democrat at the top of your voice. I get up every day trying to move our party forward so we can get back to that place where Democratic registration is on par with representation in the state, where people aren't having to be whisper Democrats, where people aren't fearful that their vote's not going to count and that they're going to be shunned away, or that they're going to have to leave the state because the state has become not friendly to who they are. So I get up every day with the intent to make it easier to be a thoughtful person, not just a Democrat, but to be a thoughtful person in Oklahoma.
That's a lot on one person's shoulders, but it's something that I know to be true about you, and I admire that. When I was talking about all the speaking that you've done, you were a keynote speaker for an event in Stillwater this weekend. You literally have spoken in so many places. You've become terrific working with the media. But I know that at least early on in your chairship was challenging for you. But you seem to have really come into your own with it. That there's just a level of comfort and familiarity that feels really good to hear and to watch. You don't have to respond to that because that was a compliment, but I just wanted you
thank you
to know how it's.
You're right. I did not run to be chair so I could be on TV. I did not run to be chair so I could, be behind a podium. I ran to improve processes and that kind of thing. But what I learned, the only way for our message to get out there is for me to get out there delivering our message and encouraging other folks and training other folks to be able to do that. And so I had to overcome my discomfort with having the camera on me. I had to overcome my discomfort of standing at the podium, overcome my discomfort of seeing myself on TV. I had to overcome that because Democrats need to know that there's a party and that we stand for something and that we're not afraid to speak. And so I put myself out there for that reason.
And I think that does it does many things, but one of the things that I think is most important is that it shows a face for the party. We're not just a monolith in an office building locked away somewhere. So that's I'm glad that you are continuing that, because you're right. I mean, we have to yell extra hard sometimes just to get our simplest messages heard.
Right.
As we should point out that you are running again for chair. The election will be this June. Now that's really something, going into a third term potentially here. What, I mean, have you not been beaten up enough that you just think you're just going to keep on going here? What is it that you want to finish, or to really continue to improve on in the next term?
So you heard my intention, and so I won't repeat that. But the party was in such a state, right, that in the rebuilding, I've had to, approach it. My background is in real estate. I had to approach it like a house. We had to fix it brick by brick. First, we had to move away because the party was broken, right? So we had to move away and clear the ground. Then we had to raise the ground, and now we're building brick by brick. We're no longer in our vendors first credit. We're no longer in, okay, that hurdle's done. We're fielding more candidates, not just because they happen to be at the Capitol, but we're actually recruiting and fielding candidates. We're fielding more candidates and more qualified candidates. So that's another brick. The next brick that I'd like to, and we're professionalizing the party so that people know that there are tools available to them. That's another brick. We have staff now that are helping people with reorganization, helping county parties figure out how to do their conventions and their precinct elections. That's another brick, right? The next brick that I'd like to add is training professionals, so that when we recruit candidates, that we can point them to someone who can help them. And it will broaden how we can recruit, because one of the biggest hurdles in recruiting folks is they're afraid to run because they don't know if they're going to have the support, if they're going to have a team around them that can help them get going. And so that's the next brick, right? Then the next brick after that is training our donors and understand that this whole politics game does cost money. You have to support the candidates that you want to represent you. And so there's just all these bricks, and there are more bricks that I want to add. And I feel like we're getting there. And I feel like there's still a little bit more work that I want to do to see this party be what I want it to see. And so, yeah, do I get beat up? Of course, but anybody in this position would, right? Anybody in any leadership position has to be willing to take on the criticism, has to be willing to take constructive criticism and make things better. And I am there. There's more work to be done.
Well, I think that that's a perfect way to end our time together this evening, because as you just there at the end, as you were talking, you became more animated, you became more excited, and that's something that I think that you share with the staff, is that we all are we feel invested in this work, because not just for today, but certainly for generations to come. Alicia, it's been great. Congratulations on the history that you're making every day, as a Black person, as a woman, and mainly as yourself, because you give 110%, and just taking the time to be with us tonight, I really appreciate. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, and I didn't make him.
Well, friends, you got a sense of the leadership born here in the Oklahoma Democratic Party, working to make Oklahoma a better place. And I think that that's some of the best news that I've heard, certainly all day, but probably in a while. People working together to just make life a little easier for other people. I want to say a big shout out to Eric Johnson for joining us from Texas tonight. I appreciate all of our viewers so much. And if you're so inclined, I hope that you will go to the easiest way to share this broadcast or any of the Chair's daily lives are from our YouTube page. It's okdemocrats.org/YouTube. And then click on the live. There's a live button. Click on that. And then you can download, you can share, comment on this or any other episode. Well, friends, we're out of time tonight. I hope that you will come back and join us next Monday evening when we'll be full into Women's History Month. And until then, please take very good care of yourself and each other. The storms last night were pretty traumatic for a number of families in Oklahoma, and for just about everyone I know, the blossoming Bradford pear trees are going to be hell for all of us. Thanks again for being with us. Do take care. And from all of us at the Oklahoma Democratic Party, I'm Scott J. Hamilton, thanking you for joining us. Good night.